Welcome to the Higher Arabia podcast, powered by Matchmaker Number One. I'm Ines Mokrani, recruiter, coach, and connector of talent across Europe and the Middle East. In this podcast, we explore the challenges, opportunities, and success stories of hiring in one of the world's most dynamic regions. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, folks. Today, we're diving into the Gen Z heartbeat in the Middle East workforce, ready or not. It's such an exciting and sometimes controversial topic.
Absolutely. It's like, some people label Gen Z as lazy or entitled, but actually what we're hearing is that they're a wake-up call for leadership, right?
Exactly. Think about it. These young folks aren't just bouncing around jobs, they're leaving bad environments that don't support them. And they're not being disloyal. They're just setting higher standards. They want respect, growth, and real engagement.
Right. And it's like they're allergic to the old school, slow moving approaches that have been the norm for too long. They just can't wait for 5 years to get a promotion, yeah?
Spot on. Traditional management styles just don't cut it anymore. When you hear about companies lamenting Gen Z doesn't stay, it really means they don't stay because they're not appreciated.
Yeah. And then there's the point around authority, like Gen Z doesn't respect unearned authority. It's not that they're disrespectful. They simply demand leadership by example, don't they?
Absolutely. I mean, real authority is earned by trust, not just by a fancy title or a position. In the interview, there was a point made, remember that quote, about how, in today's world, respect is earned in real time.
Right. And that ties directly into how companies manage their teams. It's interesting when you consider that statements like Gen Z is difficult are really more about the company's inability or unwillingness to adapt. Would you agree?
I do. In fact, it's a clear sign of a leadership problem. We're seeing that if an environment doesn't respect or nurture them, Gen Z simply opts out. And that's more an indictment of the outdated leadership than a flaw in the young talent.
Yeah. You mentioned something about how Gen Z is just too eager to contribute immediately. No waiting around for a one-day scenario. That's like expecting instant coffee to match the depth of a slow brew, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like, when you need your coffee hit now instead of slow drip, they want fast feedback, real mentorship, and quick paths to growth.
Yeah, for sure. Now, here's something I kind of challenge, though. Isn't there a risk that by leaving quickly from one job to the next, they might be seen as unstable? How do we counter that narrative?
Good point. But really, it's more about leaving toxic or stagnant environments. Rather than instability, it's a quest for a better fit. They're not job hoppers.
Right.
They're seekers of meaningful work.
That makes a lot of sense. And the Middle East context really spices it up. Countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar have a lot riding on young talent because of their rapidly changing economies.
Definitely. With initiatives like Saudi Vision 2030, you've got young teams at the helm, pushing boundaries, innovating. It's not just about filling seats, it's about steering the future, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. And when you hear that more than 45% of the workforce in the UAE is under 35, it's clear. Companies that say, I don't know how to manage Gen Z, actually admit they don't know how to manage the future.
Right, exactly. And that's a transformation challenge. Companies need to learn that leadership today is about non-micromanagement, rapid feedback, and clear growth trajectories.
Yep. I love the part where someone mentioned that Gen Z challenges in meetings aren't signs of disrespect, but actual engagement. That's so important, don't you think?
Oh, totally. When a young team member asks why, it's not about being difficult, it's about sparking innovation. It's like stirring the pot to see what new flavors emerge.
Yeah, exactly. Right, because a silent nod isn't respect, it's often fear. And in dynamic environments like these, you need that feedback loop actively. People must be comfortable asking questions.
Absolutely. It's all about creating a voice culture where ideas can come from anyone, regardless of their rank. That way, companies heal their leadership gaps, moving away from just following age-old bureaucratic methods.
And speaking of leadership, what about that notion of fast feedback? Why is it so critical for Gen Z?
Well, think about it. If you're waiting a full year for feedback, you lose momentum. Gen Z thrives on immediacy. They want to know they're growing now,
Right.
not later. This essentially speeds up the entire development process.
That reminds me of a story from a client in Dubai. Someone said, young people today have no loyalty after a few Gen Z hires left. And the response was pretty telling. Why should they be loyal to a place that doesn't invest in them?
Exactly, that story nails it. Instead of complaining about loyalty, companies should ask themselves if they even provided mentorship, growth plans, or recognition. If not, then can you really expect loyalty?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like loyalty is a byproduct of feeling valued. And it's interesting how the conversation also highlighted that if you give Gen Z the right environment, they're not just staying, they're leading initiatives.
Right. When they're given the chance, they not only stick around, but they also start building mini projects, turning into leaders themselves. It's a clear win-win if you invest in them properly.
For sure. So, breaking it down, what should leaders in the Middle East do differently?
Great question. Well, basically, there are I'd say 5 core rules. First, stop micromanaging. Trust your hires. Focus on outcomes more than clocking hours.
Right, that's huge. And the second would be quick, fast feedback, right? They need real-time coaching instead of annual reviews.
Yes, exactly. Third, show them the path. If the future isn't visible, why should they commit? Fourth,
Exactly.
be real. No corporate buzzwords, no fake culture.
And that fifth rule, create a voice culture, is key. Encourage honest conversations so innovation doesn't die. But I have to respectfully challenge one thing here. Don't you think sometimes these rapid changes might overwhelm traditional teams?
Well, that's a valid concern, but I'd argue that it's more of an opportunity. Sure, change can be overwhelming at first, but once realized, it energizes everyone. A team that learns to work with young talent ultimately evolves and thrives.
Yeah, I see that. I can see that perspective. It's not about replacing the old guard entirely, but adapting leadership to be more inclusive and collaborative.
Exactly. And remember, in the Middle East, transformation is the norm. From the UAE to Saudi Arabia, industries are moving at digital speed. Gen Z is just a natural extension of that revolution.
It's interesting. The idea that if companies don't adapt, Gen Z will simply build their own paths. Startups in Riyadh, tech hubs in Dubai, even gaming studios in Doha. They're not waiting around.
Right, they're proactive. They won't wait 10 years for permission to lead. If their current environment stifles growth, they create a new one. And that's a wake-up call for companies. Evolve or get left behind.
Absolutely. And that's really the crux of today's dive, isn't it? Gen Z isn't a risk. They're an opportunity. They bring fresh digital talent, speed, courage, and challenging ideas to the table.
Exactly. Leadership from the past simply won't attract the future. Companies need to partner with Gen Z, guide them, challenge them, and ultimately grow with them.
Right on. So, to wrap it up, it seems the message for the Middle East is be ready for Gen Z because they're already shaping a new way of working. It's like, if you don't change your leadership style, you'll be managing an outdated system. Isn't that so?
Absolutely. It's a call to action. Innovation starts with listening, with real engagement, and with trusting that the next generation has the answers.
Yeah. And to everyone tuning in, let this be a reminder. Gen Z isn't a problem to be solved, but a challenge to be embraced. Their demands for respect, rapid growth, and genuine leadership are the blueprint for a successful future workforce.
Right, the takeaway is crystal clear. If companies invest in nurturing this talent instead of trying to control it with outdated methods, they'll not only attract but retain the very driving force behind tomorrow's innovations.
Exactly. That wraps up our discussion on Gen Z in the Middle East workforce. I hope this conversation has sparked some fresh ideas on leadership and innovation.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for joining us in this deep dive into the future of work, where Gen Z leads the charge and calls us all to evolve.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to the Higher Arabia podcast, brought to you by Matchmaker Number One. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps us connect even more talented individuals with opportunities. See you next time. Until then, keep building bridges between cultures and careers.